strike. In life is one that can be compromised. It is multifold. In placing priority to education, if you recall, in April this year, the new Student Loan Act was signed into law by President Bola Tinubu as part of efforts to bridge the gap for students to have access to sustainable higher education and functional skills development. A laudable initiative indeed by the present administration and a boost in the education sector, as amendments under the new act provide loans to qualified applicants, vocational training and skills acquisition. The loan scheme, experts say, is dynamic, adaptable and a responsive means towards the development of the education sector. Now, the new Loan Act also paves the path for the protection of citizens to ensure they have the means to fund their education. No doubt, the student loan scheme has come to stay, as applications by students have begun, with more than 60,000 applications already received by the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, that is NELFUND, since registration for the first phase started. What impact will this scheme have in the education sector and for the applicants as soon as implementation begins? Just as there are expectations from Nigerian students, there are likely impediments in meeting the demands of the students. Tonight on Weekend File, we will be discussing the first phase of the student loan scheme. As usual, our correspondents have filed in reports on stakeholders' perspectives on the student loan scheme. Our guest is Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, Managing Director, CEO, Nigerian Education Loan Fund. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguele. First, we'll begin with the news. The federal government has appealed to the organized labor to return to the negotiation table as the country cannot withstand strike. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, at a press briefing in Abuja, says federal government is desirous of industrial harmony through dialogue. Salihu Gwanara reports.
In view of the current economic situation of the country and the government programs to the citizens, the Minister of Information and National Orientation wants the organized labor union to return to the peaceful process of negotiation as members of the tripartite committee on national minimum wage.
The welfare of over 200 million Nigerians is also at stake. Therefore, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not only considering the plight of federal workers, that's only about 1.2 million, but is also concerned about the welfare of the other 200 million Nigerians. This is because the federal government's guiding principle is affordability, sustainability, and the overall health of the nation's economy. The federal government, therefore, calls on all parties to embrace reasonable and realistic dialogue that will result in proper resolution of the impasse.
President Bola Tinubu, he assured, is desirous of a better living condition for all citizens and will not accept actions that would lead to job losses.
Even before the discussion on the national minimum wage, you recall that the federal government has put in a number of measures to cushion the hardship that is experienced by Nigerians, especially the federal workers. One of it is the 35,000 wage award, which was supposed to last for 6 months, which the federal government now says can continue until the new national minimum wage is arrived at. Other intervention programs are the 125 billion naira conditional grant and financial inclusion of medium and small-scale enterprises, 185 billion naira worth of palliatives, meaning loans to states, to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal has also been granted by the federal government. There is also 200 billion naira support to the agriculture sector to cultivate over 500,000 hectares of land to boost food production and food security in Nigeria.
Labour on Friday, 31st May 2024, declared an indefinite nationwide strike to commence on Monday, 3rd June 2024. In Abuja, Saliu Gwanara, NTA News.
In a related development, the Minister of State for Labour and Employment in Kiruka, Onyeje Ocha, says the declaration of a nationwide strike in the middle of negotiation is not in the best interest of the country and its people, as it stands to only exacerbate the suffering of millions surviving on daily incomes. She says government has consistently demonstrated commitment and goodwill throughout negotiating the new national minimum wage with careful proposals taking into account the country's economic realities and incorporating innovative solutions. To the minister, a new minimum wage must not lead to widespread job losses, particularly in the organized private sector, which employs the bulk of the nation's workforce. Hence, the need to find a balance between the needs of workers and the economic realities of the country. She outlines government's proposal to include a comprehensive package featuring a wage increase to 60,000 naira for federal workers, the introduction of CNG-fueled buses, and enhanced financial access for micro, small and medium enterprises. In addition, the government has pledged investments in strategic sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, education, healthcare, and many others that are already on the pipeline. The minister urges the workers' unions to reconsider their decision and continue engaging in constructive dialogue to find a solution that benefits all. In other news, dignitaries from all walks of life, including the Vice President of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, today converged on Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, to celebrate a legal icon, Professor Yusuf Ali, at the 30th year anniversary of his chambers. Khadijat Akombi reports that the former Minister of Works, Babatunde Raji Fashola, presented the anniversary lecture.
For Yusuf Ali SAN, who is a professor of practice and a man of numerous awards for his contributions to the development of the legal profession within and outside the country, as well as his philanthropic ventures through his foundation, it was indeed a glorious moment as dignitaries from all walks of life turned out in their numbers to honor him as he celebrates 30 years of existence of his chambers. Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, described Yusuf Ali SAN as an eminent legal practitioner who has contributed immensely to the development of Nigeria.
Yusuf Ali SAN found his way here and has continued to positively influence the legal profession in our dear nation. He has absorbed the influences of glory, and in turn, he has added to the mystique of this city of life.
Chairman of the occasion, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, also poured encomiums on the celebrant and appreciated God for his achievement. Presenting the anniversary lecture on the topic, Presidential or Parliamentary System of Government, where is the convergence? Former Minister of Works, Babatunde Raji Fashola, stressed the need for the stakeholders to apply caution in the choice of whether Nigeria should maintain the presidential system or switch to the parliamentary system of government.
To ask ourselves why the parliamentary system failed us so woefully, because it has done so, and whether we have overcome those reasons.
For the celebrant, he will continue to dedicate his life to the service of God and humanity.
Allah has always provided a way out. He gave me the strength, wisdom, and courage to persevere.
There were goodwill messages from eminent personalities who graced the occasion, during which they all commended the celebrant for his contributions to the development of Nigeria and humanity. Highlights of the event was the unveiling of a compendium on 3 decades of Gallup chambers by the Vice President of Nigeria. As part of his engagement in Ilorin, the Vice President paid a courtesy visit to the Emir of Ilorin, Alhaji Ibrahim Sulugambari, where he commended the peaceful coexistence in the ancient town. Khadija Takambi, NTA News.
Nigeria's former military president, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, has advocated for collective efforts to write a new narrative for the betterment of the country, using public relations as a tool for effective leadership. He gave this indication when he received executive members of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations at his Hilltop residence as part of activities lined up to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the institute in Mina, Niger State. Fatima Usman reports.
The Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, established in 1963, was signed as a decree in 1990 by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, giving it a global stand of becoming a chartered institute. This institute, which has been in the forefront of strategic communications and rebuilding the reputation of Nigeria through effective leadership, is now 60 years. It is for this reason and other giant strides achieved that the Institute decided to visit and recognize the icon General Babangida, who wrote Nigeria on a global history of public relations, being the first to be chartered. General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who congratulated the Institute for living up to expectations and being steadfast in implementing what the country expects, believes that there is the need to write new narrative for the country and commended the Institute for providing a better society.
Our strength now has gone high, and I believe as time goes by, our society will be a society that everybody will be proud to belong. More congratulations for the good job you have been doing to the country and for keeping very steadfast in implementing all what the country expects you to do.
Moving forward, we want to ensure that public relations takes a center stage in leadership of Nigeria. Having the capacity to strategically communicate what has to be done and what is being done.
It is a time that the minister has said, bringing back public trust to public communication, understanding that PR is very important.
The Diamond celebration with the theme Public Relations and Value Reorientation and Economic Transformation had earlier embarked on roadwork with trees planted to promote the Green Nigeria initiative. Visit to the Emir of Mina, Umar Farouk Bahago, and Dina in Mina. Fatima Usman, NTA News.
Well, as part of activities lined up for the Diamond Jubilee celebration of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, state chapters of the Institute organized road walk and tree planting for economic transformation. Let's get a feel of that.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I know it will provide all that we require, we expect of us. In Jesus' name.
Amen. We are also doing it by ensuring that we plant trees that will provide oxygen, that will provide shade for the economy of Nigeria to grow better.
You are walking, you are keeping fit, and you are mentally alert. It shows that it's symbolic for the Nigerian Public Relations that we are making progress, we are moving forward.
Nigeria used to be a beautiful country. Nigeria is good. Nigeria will still be better, but we want to change the narrative by making Nigeria green again.
More or less, the new leadership, doing things that has never been done before.
The Kaduna State climate change policy is presently on his desk to be signed into law, and so many other lofty initiatives and actions that are geared towards helping Nigeria to realize its NDC.
It will aid in generating oxygen and sustaining our environment and feed the future generations that will come.
Thank you, NIPR, for thinking it fit to organize this walk. It's your own way of adding value to our lives.
Drawing the attention of this country to say everybody needs to work together to build a transformed economy. We want this nation to be better.
Green environment signifies an environment that is very encouraging, an environment that is very healthy for our people. So we shall continue to collaborate with you people, especially in this area of tree planting.
God has blessed us with fertile land. Can we take our economic trees and go back to the olden days? That is awareness too that we are raising.
We have monitored and we have picked 60 pieces of disposed material.
It's everybody knows the ravages of climate changes to our environment, and whatever anybody does to try and preserve our environment is commendable.
Diamond work indeed for economic transformation. Let's turn to education. More than 70,000 registered candidates sat for the 2024 National Common Entrance Examination across 599 examination centers nationwide. Now, this is 2,262 less than the number of candidates who sat for the exercise last year. Olainka Ojo will tell us more.
It is that time of the year where final year pupils from primary schools look forward to securing admission into the more than 100 federal unity colleges in the country. And the basic determining factor to fill available spaces into JSS1 is this common entrance examination.
I wrote last year, but that of this year is better than last year. The exam will be fine and easy, I'm sure I'll pass.
The examination monitoring team, led by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education, and the Chairman, Senate Committee on Basic and Secondary Education, applauded the innovations of the National Examinations Council in the conduct of examinations.
We are happy with all that NECO has put in place to ensure a smooth and seamless exercise.
Then the next level is to upgrade to the JAM. Well, I visited the JAM examination centers while writing with computers.
NECO's registrar, Professor Dantani Wushishi, made clarifications on the issues of underage pupils sitting for the exercise, low turnout compared to last year's examination, as well as if the 2024 exercise also made provisions for working candidates.
Even candidate came ready to register by payment of fiscal cash and transfer. We say we don't do that. We have a process, so that process should be followed. Last year's registration was higher than this year's registration. This could be attributed to so many factors.
Available statistics indicates that Lagos State has the highest number of registered candidates with a total of 17,751 candidates, while Taraba State has 106 candidates, which is the lowest. Olainka Ojo, NTA News.
The West African Examination Council says the ongoing West African Senior School Certificate Examination conducted by the Council across the Federation will continue, despite planned strike by labor unions. The branch controller Ekiti of West African Examinations Council, Tay Lawson, who disclosed these in a statement, noted that the attention of the management had been drawn to a notice of the commencement of indefinite strike by NLC and TUC effective Monday, 3rd of June 2024. She said inasmuch as WAEC shared the concerns of the unions and the generality of Nigerians, the certification examination is going on across the member countries of WAEC, and the Nigerian child should not be put to a disadvantaged position of missing the exam. The statement added that WAEC would conduct the exam and urged school principals, supervisors, parents and the general public to take notes and make adequate arrangements for their candidates to sit for the exam. In other news, Nigeria is engaging leaders around the world on how its action plans are helping to limit the adverse effects of climate change on health of its people. Minister of State for Environment Isiaq Salako at a regional roundtable meeting on the margins of the 77th World Health Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland, recommended mobilization of domestic funding as an important strategy that can address the resurgence of malaria. Let's hear from Charles Alpha.
Nigeria, like many countries in Africa, the minister said he is experiencing the adverse impacts of climate change on health disproportionately, with communities witnessing resurgence of malaria, straining health systems, jeopardizing progress towards malaria eradication. However, in response to the malaria situation, the Nigerian National Malaria Elimination Program, he said, initiated the high burden to high impact approach with technical support from the WHO and other partners to address the malaria situation in Nigeria. And the current 2021-2025 National Malaria Strategic Plan is based on the vision of achieving a malaria-free Nigeria, 10% parasite prevalence and mortality attributable to malaria to less than 50 deaths per 1,000 by 2025.
Nigeria has about 60,000 registered environmental health officers who work at the community level, at the village level. And of course, we also know that most of the primary healthcare workers also work at this level. So taking the One Health approach to that level has also helped tremendously in driving the agenda of putting climate health in more context within the health agenda.
He also highlighted how the implementation of climate policies and actions like National Clean Cook Policy, Net Zero, green transport, energy transition, and sustainable food system can play a crucial role in combating malaria and addressing climate-related health challenges. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Gombe State intending Muslim pilgrims have been sent forth to perform the 2024 Hajj exercise. Emmanuel Akila reports that the 1,370 would-be participants have been charged to pray for the betterment of Gombe State and Nigeria in general while in the Holy Land.
The intending pilgrims undergo orientation to expose them to the rudiments of performing the Hajj exercise. Now the time has come for the spiritual journey. Governor Muhammad Ino Yahaya charges them to be patriotic while performing the exercise. A Muslim is a person who abides by the law and order as laid down by the Almighty. Even our everyday life in the society is governed by laws and regulations. Gombe State Muslim Pilgrims Welfare Board has done the necessary preparation, but the state government has to intervene for it to overcome some of the challenges in this year's operation.
Within all possible means, we have done all we can to make sure that we go with them safely and return with them safely. The Hajj fare was suddenly increased to a very, very unacceptable cost. And the governor felt very, very much touched, and he decided now to intervene.
The participants are happy with the support from the state government, assuring of abiding by all rules in Nigeria and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia regarding the exercise. Gombe State intending pilgrims are expected to be airlifted from the Gombe International Airport Lawanti from Saturday, 1st June 2024 in Gombe. Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu has condemned the killing of 5 soldiers by suspected militants of the proscribed terrorist organization, describing it as unwarranted, barbaric and evil act that will not be tolerated in the country. The president, in a statement personally signed, expressed concern that the incident is coming just 2 months after a similar tragic incident happened in Okwama in Delta State. Soldiers and the police, he says, have the onerous duty to protect all citizens from aggressors and non-state actors, leading to hundreds of them paying the ultimate price in fulfillment of their duty, and therefore do not deserve the mindless attacks by unruly elements in this society. President Tinubu warns that the federal government will come down heavily against those who have made it a habit to needlessly attack the officers and men of the armed forces, reiterating that the government and the armed forces have the capacity to crush violent non-state actors, making our communities unsafe. He urged security agencies not only to fish out the masterminds and perpetrators of the Aba attack, but also those calling on people to stay at home, as their action is nothing but a treasonable offense. The president assured the citizens that government is working to build a peaceful and harmonious society. Therefore, nobody should be under any illusion that the government will not act appropriately when the lives of officers and men are wantonly taken. While expressing condolences to the families of the 5 slain soldiers, their colleagues, and the leadership of the armed forces, President Tinubu urged other men and women on peacekeeping duty not to be discouraged by the unfortunate incident in Aba. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be discussing the first phase of the Student Loan Act. Thank you for staying tuned. Well, before we begin our conversation on the first phase of the student loan scheme, we'll bring you some reports. Tertiary education is very vital to the development of the country, as it aims, at providing the manpower for the industrial sector in the country. In Nigeria, the subsector faces many challenges, such as inadequate funding, lecturers, infrastructural facilities and schools, unstable academic calendar, academic corruption, you name it. In this report, Olainka Ojo examines the journey so far and government's efforts to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 4.
It is no longer news that students in Nigeria face various challenges that hinder their pursuit of tertiary education, such as financial constraints, limited access, poor quality of secondary education, lack of infrastructure, inadequate funding, and brain drain. Although these challenges vary from region, gender, and socio-economic to the background of the students. In a bid to address the challenges of funding in the education sector, the government introduced the Student Loan Initiative, a fulfillment of the promise made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his renewed hope agenda for education. The Student Loan Initiative is designed to bring Nigeria closer to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4, which ensures inclusive and equitable quality education and promotes lifelong learning opportunities for all. Now, known as Access to Higher Education Act, it will ensure that no Nigerian, regardless of their background, will be excluded from obtaining access to quality education. With more than 500 tertiary institutions in Nigeria, one interesting thing about the initiative is that it gives access to funds for education and vocational training through a corporate body, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFUND, which will provide the loans to Nigerians for higher education and playing a pivotal role in bridging the financial gap in higher education. By so doing, countless Nigerian youths will be empowered to pursue their academic dreams without undue financial burden. Eligible applicants can receive up to 500,000 naira per academic session. The loans cover tuition fees and maintenance costs. Since ensuring the integrity of the loan application process is at the heart of what the fund is doing, measures are in place to verify applicants' eligibility and prevent fraud. Another cherry news is that NELFUND will soon expand its services to include students attending state-owned tertiary institutions, and all the state institutions are expected to submit their student data on or before June 25th. This is to facilitate a smooth and seamless application process. With all of these measures in place, Nigeria will make tremendous progress in its drive to achieve access to education and produce critical mass of youths that can compete globally in a functional education. Olainka Ojo, NTA News.
All right, the establishment of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund by the Student Loan Act as amended and subsequent creation of a portal for biodata capturing of interested candidates is generating comments from experts in the education and financial sectors. Well, they believe hitches might be experienced at the initial stage, which will form the basis for perfecting the scheme. Let's hear from Larry Belain.
The federal government announced the takeoff of the Students' Loan Program for indigent students as a way to enable them pursue their academic dreams. And to demonstrate the viability of the program, a portal has been created by the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFUND, for biodata capturing of would-be candidates.
As we go along, definitely things will begin to normalize. Even creating a portal, as time goes on, there will be moderation on the portal based on the challenges you are encountering. They will begin to develop more and more technology to resolve it.
The first 6 months of this idea is to invest in the data architecture and infrastructure so that the hiccups that come with applying for such loans would be mitigated against, and the process will be seamless.
Since the signing of the students' loan into law by President Bola Tinubu on April 3rd, 2024, stakeholders are convinced that the Loan Act as amended will resolve challenges bordering on implementation, management, purpose of the loan, eligibility, method of application, repayment and recovery provisions.
I'm convinced that the law is strong enough for us to be able to achieve that. I also believe that great platform has been created, both in terms of funding the loan scheme and also the structure to ensure that all the things are abide with.
The Student Loan Act created NELFUND, a corporate body that can sue and be sued in its name and given the power to acquire, hold, or dispose movable and immovable property for the purpose of its functions. In Lagos, Larry Bilayi, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests now. We have in the studio Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, Managing Director and CEO, Nigerian Education Loan Fund, that is NELFUND. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mrs. Aguele. Thank you for having me here today.
It's Miss.
Miss Aguele.
Yes.
I beg your pardon.
All right, it's okay. All right, we've seen the first phase of the student loan scheme kicked off, and under 1 week we're hearing 70,000 registration and 38,000 loan application. How overwhelming has it been, looking at that?
Okay, so interesting. It hasn't been overwhelming. What I would say is that we have been very satisfied with our state of preparedness for what we expected, and what we expected happened. 9.5 million hits on our site. Some of them might have been multiple hits, but we had 9.5 million hits, and the site stood up to it. And what we have, more importantly, is 70,000 successful registrations to date, which means that 70,000 people have been on the site and have been able to successfully log their details and express an interest in applying for the loans. Out of that, we've had nearly 40,000 loan applications come through, which are due for consideration, and we'll be looking at that in the coming weeks as more and more applications come in. We're excited, we're not overwhelmed, we're optimistic that as time goes along, some of the hitches we've seen, some of the challenges that we've come across will be resolved. We're already resolving some of them. It's natural to have these sorts of hitches with any sort of IT project of this size, with this much pent-up demand in the country for education loans.
Okay, since you've already mentioned the hitches, which is which is something to be expected when you're dealing with a portal like that. Well, federal polytechnics and of course federal tertiary institutions have already been included in the first phase, and we're hearing that state tertiary institutions will be given a chance in the coming weeks, 3 weeks thereabout. What are the measures you've actually put in place to address some of these hitches, so to say?
Okay, thank you. No, so as I said, we've been expecting, because of the pent-up demand in the country for financial support, financial aid, to access education, we expected lots and lots of people to show a keen interest. The sort of hitches we've had are primarily related to the data integrity. So if you think about it, what we've actually done is created a system where the applicant comes in and provides a set of data, their JAM number, their NIN, their BVN, and then they're allowed to create a dashboard, if you like, an account where they put they create a username and a password. And then it goes on for them to be able to make the application itself. Now, when they make the application itself, there's data that is drawn on from the institutions. Now, I saw in your report over 500 institutions you've identified. The institutions all have to provide the NELFUND with data on their department, the programs they run, the longevity of the programs, the faculties they belong to, the cost of the course, all of those details, and of course, more importantly, or most importantly, should I say, the details of every single student, either already in the institution or those who are coming in, which is where the JAM number, or I beg your pardon, the admission number, admission letter, and the matriculation number come in for verification based on what the student put in the first place. There are hitches there because sometimes these numbers don't match up. It's alphanumeric, so of course, if you miss out on a digit or you get an alphabet in the wrong place in the series of eligibility confirmation requirements that we have, what happens is that the system doesn't recognize it as matching, and in order to prevent fraud, it basically shuts you out. But we're resolving those as we go along.
And we also made to understand that there will be skills acquisition aspects to that. So students, thinking of collecting just money, there's more. Let's take a break. We'll pick up with that after the break. Glad you stayed tuned. The conversation is still on the first phase of the student loan scheme. Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, we're just going to pick up with the aspect of the skills acquisition. I want you to give us the specifics. Now, for students who are applying for this loan, I know a lot of them will just have at the back of their minds that it's all about the money. But tell us the aspect for the training, in various vocational fields that the loan applies for.
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. So the initial act did not include skills acquisition, but the President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, in his wisdom when he retransmitted the bill for reenactment, included in the request to the National Assembly the inclusion of skills acquisition and skills training, vocational training for Nigerians. There's a recognition in that what we actually need in this country is not just more people who are qualified academically, but that there are lots and lots of people in this country who are very good with their hands, with physical, vocational skills, and more importantly, the country actually needs it. We want to maintain infrastructure, we want to provide services, we want to ensure that we can actually make things, build things, make things happen, repair things. So this particular element of the law that NELFUND is also delighted to be able to take responsibility for is the ability to provide loans to those who want to go and further their talents, if you like, who want to go and further their ability to actually use their hands and their physical skills to make things happen. This is great because it captures a far greater number of Nigerians than perhaps even what we're seeing in the academic sector. And because this is a developing country, and because we need skills, we need people who can actually do things, we actually will benefit hugely from this. The challenge, though, is that we need to now set standards. What are the standards that electricians need to have, do plumbers need to have, tilers, bricklayers, mechanics? These sorts of welders, these sorts of skills are incredibly useful to our socioeconomic future and fabric. And we just need to set the standards and make sure that those standards can be met. I'll tell you, one of the greatest impacts this will have is that rather than having people coming from abroad to come and do some of this work for us, we can actually train our people to do the work and keep some of that money in the country, keep some of that value in the country, and of course, reduce things like unemployment, reduce things like banditry, reduce things like people getting into petty crime, petty theft, and just having literally nothing to do. Lots and lots of things need to be fixed in this country, need to be done, and we're going to have great impact. What we're going to do is provide these people with the ability to go and enhance, sharpen their skills, and then get properly certified, properly qualified for this, so that they're attractive to industry, attractive to manufacturers, and attractive to investors who want to come and invest in Nigeria to get things done.
Okay, Mr. Sawyer, I'll have to let you go now, but just give Nigerian student assurance in one word. How soon will it commence, disbursement of the loan?
Okay, so the disbursement...
Just in few seconds.
Okay, disbursements of the loan, the approvals for the loans is going to happen in the next 20 days. We will approve. The value for the loans will start when the next academic session starts, which is when we start to show the value that we've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. He's the Managing Director, CEO, Nigerian Education Loan Fund. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
For the great work you're doing. And there is hope for Nigerian students. Let's take a break. Thank you for staying tuned. It was a moment of grief for the family of late Jonas Awujo of Umudurulo Imbiri in Imbetoli local government area of Imo State as they paid their last respect to him during his funeral. The burial ceremony was preceded by a funeral service at St. Paul's Anglican Church.
Umudurulu Bakorombieri in Imbitolu local government area of Imo State witnessed a crowd of sympathizers as family members, friends, and well-wishers, as well as business associates, converged to bid farewell to the late patriarch Jonas Awujo, a man who, according to many, paid his dues in national development during his service in the Nigeria Customs. In his message at the funeral service held at St. Paul's Anglican Church, Obakorumbieri, the Bishop of Ikeduru Anglican Diocese, Right Reverend Emma Maduike, admonished Christians to live with heaven in view. He described the late Awujo as one who contributed to the propagation of the gospel. The remains of late Jonas Awujo were later interred in his compound after graveside rites. Children of the deceased described their late father as loving and caring, a good family man, and a disciplinarian who impacted the lives of many around him positively.
From the turnout today, you can see that he's
humor. He has a very good sense of humor. He's a very wise man.
Some sympathizers encouraged the bereaved family to continue in the legacies of their late father, late Jonas Awujo, who died at the age of 79, retired as a deputy controller of customs.
Right, and that concludes Weekend File. Thank you for your company. Do have a good night rest. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.